biggest lizard I've ever seen.
Nottingham Forest have signed about 30 players this season. That's many, many players. Arsene Wenger once said famously that signing any more than 3 in one window risks destabilising the team. Well, boy. So, to help talk about this and work out whether Nottingham Forest are in a good place or not, is Nick Miller, who is a Nottingham Forest supporter?
I am, yeah, that's quite correct.
And a scientist?
Yes, also correct.
Excellent. So, they've signed many players. So first of all, let's look at how Nottingham Forest play. Could you please tell me what this looks like and what this sort of 11 looks like from all these many players?
Yeah, so as you can see here, lots of players. This 11 here, I think, is the team that manager Steve Cooper would pick if everyone was fit, which hasn't been very often this season at all. So you've got Keylor Navas in goal, obviously, which is ludicrous that he plays for Nottingham Forest, but a back 4. He started the season with a back 3, and then it went really, really badly. So he shifted to a back 4. At some point during the season, he figured out that the best way of setting up these players is in this sort of midfield diamond-ish formation where these strikers would kind of come out wide, and Morgan Gibbs-White, who's probably the most important player of the team, would kind of come into these gaps and roam all over the place, really. And you got a fairly kind of solid midfield 3 of Ryan Yates, John Shelvey, and Remo Freuler.
And different kind of profiles as well. Yates, I've noticed, likes to kick people a lot and make things happen.
He loves kicking people. He is very much a kind of disruptor of play. He will kick people and give it to Remo Freuler, who's very good at sort of moving the ball around, not the most sort of progressive passer in the world. There are quite a lot of points this season, both he and Oral Mangala have been playing, and when they play together, you don't get a lot of forward passing, so it gets quite frustrating. Right. John Shelvey was signed in January, the theory being that he would be the guy who sort of moved the ball forward more quickly in a slightly more progressive way.
So you've got sort of long passes, Shelvey, these sorts of things, neat and tidy from Freuler, and then this guy is, I'll just draw like a fist. Around rates. Around rates, there we go. So that's how the midfield works. Short passing from the back, they build up, do they knock it long? What are the general principles?
Freuler played a lot of the season kind of in here, so the instinct would have been to give it to him, who would then play it out in a kind of more short passing. The other way would be for Keylor Navas to pass the ball out to Niakate, or one of the centre-backs. Niakate has actually not played very much this season because he got injured in the second game. Or the full-backs, who may then look to play long, to Taiwo Awoniyi, who has been injured for a couple of months and is just coming back now. There was a lot of emphasis, or that there continues to be a lot of emphasis on using Brennan Johnson's pace down the right-hand side. So he has kind of improved as the season's gone on, but at the start of the season he wasn't quite technically good enough for the Premier League, but he would cause lots of problems anyway because defenders were just terrified of...
Disrupt things with pace.
He would kind of get down here and maybe try and put a low cross in, or move more into the middle and go for goal himself.
Right, so of this team, how many of these... if we double tap on it, it'll go yellow. How many of these are new signings?
Okay, Gibbs-White is a new signing. One is new signing. Freuler, Niakate, Lodi, Felipe, Aurier, and Keylor Navas. So, in fact, of this first choice 11, the only 2 players that were there last season are Ryan Yates and Brennan Johnson.
So, why did they sign so many players this season?
Well, JJ, I'm glad you asked. The short answer is that the basis of the promotion team from last season in the Championship was loan players. 5 of the key players were loanees, none of whom, for various reasons, were signed permanently. And by sort of definition, the players that they were keeping out of the team were, if they weren't good enough to be first choice in the Championship, they weren't going to be good enough to be sort of first choice in the or involved in the Premier League at all, really. They had to basically sign a whole new team. Then Forest took that to a bit more of an extreme by signing 2 or 3 new teams.
Yes, they did do that.
Yeah. So they needed to sign a lot of players. Whether they needed to sign 29, 30, it genuinely is quite difficult to keep track.
Well, we can go through them. Yeah. Let's go through. So these are the goalkeepers. They signed 3 goalkeepers.
Yeah.
But like Keylor Navas, clearly first choice. Did Henderson got injured, is that right?
So Dean Henderson signed a loan for Manchester United and was first choice for the first half of the season. He got injured in January, I think. It must have been January. They were clearly so terrified at the prospect of Wayne Hennessy spending any more time in goal that they signed Keylor Navas, actual Keylor Navas, from Paris Saint-Germain. Henderson is still injured. Navas has been playing in goal for the last couple of months. Navas will probably be first choice, but who knows?
You'd think so. Right, defenders. So this is one page of defenders. Renan Lodi from Atletico Madrid. Big names here. Willy Boley's been a good player for Wolves for a long time. Harry Toffolo, don't know an awful lot about him. Felipe, I think, has looked really decent since he's come in.
Yeah.
Serge Aurier, sensible signing at right wing back, right?
Right, yeah. Sergio Aurier was one of the couple of players who Forest have signed so many players that the ending of the transfer window didn't stop them from signing players. So Aurier was on a free transfer and he signed in the first week of September, I think. People thought that, mainly me, I suppose, thought that it was a bit of an unnecessary one, but he's actually been one of the better players this season. Really surprised people.
Other page of defenders: Nico Williams, Musa Nikate. These two lads. Omar Richards, signed from Bayern Munich, high potential player, but hasn't played much.
He hasn't played at all.
Well, at all?
No. He's been out for the whole season, firstly with a broken leg, and he has, throughout his recovery, has kind of picked up a variety of sort of extra injuries that has meant he didn't play at all in the first half of the season, and then he picked up another injury, I think, in January, which meant that they didn't register him in the 25-man squad. So he will have signed last summer and won't have played at all for Forest this season.
But next season he'll be like a new signing.
Well, hopefully,
The start of the next deluge.
That's the theory. Yeah.
All right, midfielders, let's go through these quickly. Freuler, highly thought of, did well at Atlanta.
Yeah.
Jesse Lingard chose Forest over going to West Ham, I think. Who's really big here for you? Like Shelby's a big signing, maybe.
Shelby was a big signing. He hasn't been particularly impressive to me so far. He's only played a handful of games, and for the first few of those games he clearly wasn't match fit because he hadn't been playing a lot for Newcastle.
Right.
Freuler has, certainly Steve Cooper likes him an awful lot. He's very kind of steady, keeps the ball ticking over. As I said, not particularly kind of progressive all of the time, but a really useful player to have in midfield as long as you haven't got players that are too similar to him. Lingard, I think that there is starting to be an acceptance that it hasn't quite worked yet. And given that he's only on a 1-year contract, it may not be working.
Worth a try, though, possibly.
Worth a try.
Then Morgan Gibbs White was a huge amount of money. There's loads of add-ons to this transfer fee as well. So, but it seems to be working for him just now as well. Danilo, another big signing. These are all right. I'll look at the strikers as well, because this is another thing where we've seen loads of additions. Oh my word, so many players.
Yeah. So
how do you gel this into a team?
Well, this has been the big problem, it felt like Cooper had sort of figured everything out and had begun to gel them into a team at some point in kind of just after the World Cup break, early January.
Were they playing the same system from the Championship when they came up?
No. So in the Championship, Forest played a sort of 3-4-1-2 system, which they started the season with in the Premier League and got humped by a variety of opponents. So they quickly decided to go to a back four. It took a couple of months for it to become kind of slightly more solid and for the team to get used to it. But yeah, as I said, around maybe just before and certainly just after, it felt like Steve Cooper had figured out the team, he'd figured out the formation that suited those players best. Then a combination of injuries to a number of key players, Taiwo Awoniyi being one of them, and then their inability not to sign more players meant that I think 7 more came in January, some of whom were potentially very good, some of whom haven't really done much yet. Chris Wood has only scored once, very big goal against Manchester City, but he's only scored once. Andre Ayew hasn't done much yet either. His biggest contribution so far has been missing a penalty against Tottenham. Right,
so of all those players that they've signed, so imagine this is next season now, I've asked you to put the ones you would keep that they've signed or have on the left-hand side, as you can see here. There's quite a lot still, but these are the ones that you would happily put in the bin, with Richards maybe.
Richards maybe, and I would personally happily put Wood in the bin, but I think he will stay out of the bin. In reality,
he will stay out of the bin. He's very tall, so I guess he'd be able to
quite
escape.
A big bin, yeah.
Unless there's another Chris Wood above him, like the bucket of crabs analogy, where they keep each other in.
Yeah.
and then that's what happened. Has it worked? Like, are they going to stay up? Is this strategy relegation proof? If they were to go down, what happens? Does it look the same?
No. I think it'll be pretty chaotic if Forest get relegated after all this. Who knows how many of these players will stay, want to stay. Brennan Johnson might be sold. Morgan Gibbs-White might be sold. These Ronan Loddy, who's on loan, he won't be playing in the Championship.
Felipe's Atletico Madrid player. He doesn't want to be in the Championship.
Yeah.
Basically, is it bad if they go down?
It's pretty bad. Yeah, it'd be pretty bad. Because some of these players are on fairly significant wages. Chris Woods.
If they stay up, is it good?
I think if they stay up, we shouldn't assume that it will be a kind of a serene progress into next season. There will be another heavy churn of players.
Well, here we go. Let's summarise it. How many more players will they sign?
I think it would probably be in double figures again. Actually, one player we have missed out on this is Sam Surridge. He's another striker, and again, he might be one that is moved on. Right. But yeah, I think there will be another heavy churn of players. Be very surprised if it was below 10.
So Nick Miller, are Nottingham Forest in a good place? Did it make sense to make all these signings?
Yes and no. It made sense to make a lot of signings. Didn't make sense perhaps to sign quite so many players. And if Forest get relegated, having signed all these players, then it was a big gamble to sign all these players and spend the amount of money that Forest did. If that gamble doesn't pay off, then who knows what's going to happen? It's going to be chaos.
And the biggest lizard you've seen is?
Real lizard. I saw a land monitor quite close, which is kind of, I don't know.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is home to some of the world's best sports journalists, including journalists dedicated to each Premier League team, so every fan gets the coverage they deserve, not just the big clubs. And you can try it for free now for 30 days. See the link in the description.